Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of That NextGen Planners Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Amelia Hamilton. I am your head of community at NextGen Planners, and as always, I am not in this pursuit alone. I have two fantastic co-hosts who join me every episode, and that is the wonderful Clara Metcalf.
Hello.
And the incredible Taylor Beavis.
Hi.
And of course, we are not alone. We are joined by a brilliant guest from the world of financial planning to help us dig down into some interesting issues that you might be facing and to explore the landscape in a little bit more detail. And on the episode today, we have the wonderful Christian Mather. Welcome to the podcast, Christian.
Thank you. Good day.
Good day. Yeah. Oh, very formal one. I like it very much. That's how we should be greeted. This is the respect I've been trying to command. Perfect. So to kick things off then, so your company is One Day Wealth. Would you like to start by giving a little bit of background of how you started One Day Wealth and your journey into the industry?
It's a good question. I think I came into London in 2010 and wanted to earn some money. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, I decided that stockbroking was somewhere where people earn some money. So I went around, found a job and spent the next sort of 8-9 years working in the stockbroking world. UK-based equities, a lot of small cap stuff, ended up running a team of sort of 16 people. And in sort of 2018, my partner was pregnant. I've got 2 stepchildren. So my first child, her third. And at that point, getting on the train at 6 a.m., getting home at 7, probably drinking far too much, going out and having that life. And I just didn't want that life going forward. I didn't want to continue doing that. So I started looking at what I can do. I had some qualifications because you needed those. And actually, I was approached by someone from St. James's Place at the time. I went fairly far with them, but decided for one reason or another, it wasn't the right path for me. And I quit my job December 2019 from quite a high salary. And we all know what happened in early 2020. And I was going as a self-employed advisor. So interestingly enough, as I said on the way, listening to some of your stories, 3 children, quite high expenses, probably didn't really plan it out, like maybe thought it'd be a bit quicker than I was expecting. But then COVID hit as well. I did childcare for a few months, decided that definitely wasn't for me. So I got going sort of June, July 2020. It was hard work, 3 children in COVID. Yeah. But yeah, and I sort of got going and working with a company called Aegis Financial Planning. John, who's the MD there, gave me quite a lot of autonomy about what I wanted to do. I went to him maybe 18 months ago and said, look, I really want to do something on my own. And he said, look, rather than go out, I know your situation, rather than go out, why don't you stay with us, but have your own brand? So actually got speaking to Dan Graham. I'm sure you all know him quite well. And that's where One Day Wealth sort of kicked off. Had no name. Dan certainly helped me with that, and we put it together and launched that in April of this year. So it's been a journey. The advantage for me is all the plumbing's looked after. I'm just the front end, so I'm doing all the marketing and everything else like that, but using the Aegis plumbing, as it were.
Yeah. Well, congrats first thing.
Thank you.
And tell me, so the stockbroker, I find it so interesting, your background. So has that really helped you as an advisor, or do you think that that's actually kind of hindered you because you're too technical about some things in terms of the equities? And tell me about that.
It taught me everything I didn't want to be in that respect. Yeah. I don't think it helped me as an advisor whatsoever. I think there's a misconception. I wasn't building portfolios. I was literally just trading stocks, taking orders and trading stocks in that sense. And I think there's quite a lot of naivety from my point of view of actually what it took to sit down with a person in front of me and actually have those conversations that are very important, and how difficult it is actually to bring people on and do that. So It did teach me, obviously, the hard work, and I'm not afraid to get on the phone and that kind of thing. But other than that, I would have said there's not a lot of crossover at all.
No. Well, yeah, that's interesting. And I like the honesty about how tough it's been, to set it up. And so how do you manage workload? And, if do you outsource? Do you usually have other people in your team? Is it just you?
Good question. Luckily with the sort of Aegis setup, that they provide an administrator. So that's something that I've never had to do, which is, I'm sure we all know, is great. So someone to do the LOAs, applications, or all of that side. Very early on in my journey, I brought, if you want to call it a PA or a VA on board. Susie, I've got to give her a mention because she's still with me now, and just on a self-employed basis, doing hours. Again, she had 2 young children in school. I very much want to work with other people that have got families in similar situations, because that's the kind of people I also want to work with as clients. It's been, from that perspective, the business I'm trying to build is, if you want to call it a lifestyle business, it's all about, and the more I've gone through this journey, the more I've found out that actually it's all about having my family first, spending time with them. I've got a home office, everything's virtual, and I want to outsource as much as possible. When my kids get a little bit older, because I've got a 17-year-old, a 10, and a 5, and I've experienced what happens. Yeah, I've experienced what happens when they get to 17. They've absolutely no interest in you, and all they want to do is pass the driving test, so that you don't have to give them a lift anymore. So I think maybe in 5, 6, 7 years' time, when they're a little bit older, then I can look at the business again and say, where do I want to take it from there?
Mm-hmm. No, so you're kind of in phases of the business. You're seeing this is like now, and then later on, what is the end? Is there an end goal, or in terms of what you want it to be? Do you want other advisors, just you? What's that looking like?
I think how long's a piece of string? At the moment, all I want it to do is give me the financial freedom, exactly like I want to give my clients. By helping my clients become financially free, I become financially free, and it's embiotic in that sense.
Nice.
So you've got a virtual PA, you're completely virtual yourself. Now, obviously during lockdown, we were all forced to go virtual, and the majority of companies have kind of kept with that to some extent. But, you hear in the news about how people are being forced to go back to the office because managers don't believe that they're, working to their full effect when they're not in the office. What's your opinion on this?
That's a good question. Let me state first and foremost that I am not the best person working from home ever. I'd get distracted like anyone, take the dog for a walk, the cricket's on, watch a bit of that in the summer, and do that kind of thing. I think individuals need to think for themselves and find the organisations that work for them, rather than, and this is part of what will come through, life by design is sort of my tagline. And I think it's, people have to think what they want. Some people want to work in an office, some don't. And I think people get stuck, and I've been there myself, in organisations and jobs and things because there's a fear about the money not being there and not doing it. So I think it's something where, if that culture doesn't fit with you, then go and find something else. It's a big world out there. And it's something I said to my niece, who's in her 20s now, and I wish it's something I'd have thought of a lot more, is don't go and find jobs based on the salary. Go and find jobs based on, do you want to work there, and is it a culture that you want to work at? Mm-hmm. So, I think it's horses for courses in that sense.
What would you say to the leadership teams who are kind of looking at this demand for the working from home and the flexibility?
Get your head out your arse. I just think I think you've got to get the best out of people, haven't you? And you've got to find what that is, and you've got to balance and communicate with people. And if the expectation when you're taking people on is you're going to be in the office, communicate with them. My partner was working for a large corporate. She sort of works in IT, and it all started off, you can work from home 3 days a week. The next thing, it's like, no, we want you in the office 4 days a week. Well, when you've got 3 children and you're planning around that, these things, changing the goalposts while people are in situ, That's the problem.
I think you raise a really interesting point though about how you're almost saying there's no one size fits all with this. So people need different setups, and that's okay. But you're saying that people need to be linked with the setup that works for them, because I know lots of people that really need an office and I really don't. Yeah. So some people do need that, I guess. So what you're saying is from the management perspective, and it's hard being a manager of a lot of people, I imagine, who all have different needs in that sense. So it seems to be a hybrid model. I see in the larger companies, I see where some people can go in.
Yeah, I also think, the point about salary being less important than the culture is something that's really coming through with the younger generation as well.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but especially with the people my friends that I talk to, they won't go with the job that's necessarily got the highest amount of money on offer. It's the one that gives them flexibility, that allows them autonomy, that these are the kind of things that I think, if you are looking to encourage a new generation of financial planners into the profession, like these are the key things that you might want to be looking at, rather than like what's the competition rate, like how much can I pay people, because that's what people value, especially after the pandemic, right? When you get a taste of, okay, is this for me? And clearly, Taylor, that's exactly your direction you've gone. And
it's kind of like before the pandemic, nobody really worked from home, right? So it wasn't really a thing that, generally. So it's kind of like that's become the salary and it's become like a currency in itself. Like, do you offer that? Yeah, time is money, right? So yeah, it's so interesting that. So
I think if we're talking about it specifically with regards to financial planning, is what message are you putting over to your clients? And if you're putting one message over to your clients but asking something else of your employees, then are you being, I hate this word, but authentic? Are you saying to your clients, lead a life, put your values first, put these things first, but then expecting your employees to act differently? Well, there's going to be something that's not working there, isn't there?
Yeah. I just have one more question to ask kind of on the virtual side of things, and that is when you are looking at clients, and I guess this is for both of you, and how you kind of you're hybrid, aren't you, Clara? You make most of work from home as well. When you are talking to clients and looking to develop those relationships and make sure that you've got a strong connection with the people you're working with, what things do you consider when you're doing it virtually, rather than being able to be sat in front of the person and able to read some perhaps non-verbal cues more clearly, or get a sense of who they are? Are there things that you have front of mind for all of you, I guess, that you think really help develop that relationship?
I do get when you sit down face to face, it's a different experience. I sometimes think there's a little bit more fluff, as in like, a little bit more this sort of, how's your day? And but like we were at the beginning, we were having a conversation. Whereas I think in that, in that virtual environment, you're a little bit more down to business. You still got to read those verbal cues. You've still got, people, and really look for, the facial expressions, people, touching their hair and all those different things, because you can still get them. And I think you've got to be really clear about what you're offering. This is what we're offering. You've got to be prepared that some people want face-to-face, and you're going to lose, clients and business from it. And even in situations where, I'll have a conversation with them. Let's say, for instance, someone comes on a Zoom call on their phone, and it's like, well, the service isn't going to work if you're going to be on a phone, because I can't show, I think you've got to use the visuals. I actually use a whiteboard rather than like sort of writing. I actually have a whiteboard behind me, drawing things on. So because I think there's still that sort of, as long as you've got the right camera and you set up.
It's the same megapixel have you got?
Yeah. So as long as you've got the right setup, people can still see, you can still draw things out. So you're still trying to use the same methods, just do it. But you've got to be realistic about the clients. I use a lot of video as well, like to use Loom to put summaries together and things like that. So it's really trying to create that client experience in a different environment. And it is for some people and it's not for others. Consequently, my client base tends to be, on the younger side for financial advisors. So my average client's about 47, because, a lot of people in work. I'll get a lot of people that husband will come on one, the wife will come on the other, or the two partners, and they'll be on different, in different locations. So it works quite well for them in that respect.
It's handy and useful, isn't it? I think our age kind of profile of clients is quite similar, and I get that too. I've started to your point, Amelia, I've started to kind of bring back a little bit of in-person meetings. So I kind of went from solely in-person, that was just how I did it before COVID, and then completely virtual, obviously, but now I'm bringing some back. And the reason why I am is because more so for new clients, so clients that I've met in person before, I find that you absorb so much from being in their home and in their space, from the dogs that they've got to how they organize themselves, who takes charge, who takes a lead, who does what. There's so much you can pick up even just meeting them once. So I tend to now with new clients, it's mostly virtual, but I ask them to choose which meeting they'd like to do in person. So at one point along that journey, we will have an in-person meeting where I'll go to them. And it can be any point. They usually will choose it kind of like the presentation meeting of the advice rather than the initial data gathering, fact-finding process. But it allows me to see more of their world, because I find very sort of cheesy, but when you're looking at a camera, you're seeing literally a square of their life, and you're only going to see what they bring into that camera field for you to see. Whereas when you go there, everything is visible around their life. So I find it's useful to do it at least once, and then maybe every other year or something like that tends to be out doing it. What about you, Claire?
Yeah, it's a funny one because I have so many clients where I've never met them, and we've done everything virtually, and I find the ones that work really well with that are people who are similar to my own age, in their sort of 30s, 20s, up to their 40s. But I've had some clients recently, I went to their house, and it was very different. We got on really well on video, but we did the sort of cash flow run through in person, and it was nice because you kind of just got a feel for their house. When people tell you about themselves and you have this image that you've built in their head, which, we always tell us, try not to put your own assumptions into things. So when you actually see it in reality, it sort of almost checks you on your assumption of that person. And it's really valuable. And I love it when someone brings out like a big television. They're like, oh, can we just put the Voyant on this? Quite an experience. And you really feel like it's almost like you've been welcomed into their space in some way. So you get a different angle on that person. So it can be really useful. But equally, some people don't want you to come to their house or come to the office. They feel more safe and more comfortable. Not. And I think that's a sort of symptom of lockdown, isn't it? We've all... I hear a lot of people being like, I forget how to socialise now, and I don't really know what I'm doing anymore. I don't like being in strangers' company. So it could be good for them to know that they don't have to have you in the house if they don't want to. But it's nice to be offered, isn't it?
Yes. Go on. I think an interesting point on that. One of the things I have to make sure I do, because I know everything is virtual, is actually get out and see people. So I run my own, I've started my own professional network up locally. There's a few other advisors, with Chris Thompson's show, because me and him speak a lot, meet up and run that group together. Because otherwise, I'm in my four walls with my children, and you go a little bit mad. So I think I still do go and meet clients. I'll have a coffee with them or lunch or something like that. I'm just not doing the work with them face to face.
Well, that's good, because you're still getting that understanding of what they're like and all of those sorts of things. But as to your point, Clara, it's about what fits them, right? And actually we're, again, a bit like the office thing, identifying that everyone's different and it depends what they need, and you just got to kind of judge it by that. And some of my clients, you can just tell they want to see you in person all the time. And sometimes they're younger like us and they're just like, I just need this done as quickly as possible during my work day. Like Teams me, Zooms me, whatever. Really interesting.
There's something I heard you say on the pod was that you do evening calls.
Yes.
Yeah, which for me is like a complete red line. Because my house between sort of, let's say, 5 and 8 o'clock is absolutely manic. So where I've tried to do it in the past, and I've got like a 5-year-old knocking on the door and going, Daddy, can I come and join you? Clients are all right about it. It's just me. I'm trying to focus on what they're saying. So how do you feel about that flexibility during your day? And
do you know what? I think it's hard. It's to your point, it's hard when you've got children, but you just said yourself, clients are fine with it. So I'm really relaxed with my clients, and it's like, I might be like, oh, do you know what, give me a second, he's just doing something, he's come in, he's asking me about a picture or whatever. So I just kind of go with the flow, and they do the same. Like I had a client the other day, and her daughter is 7, and she came in halfway through and had to tell her mum about what she had been doing for that day. So we just sat and listened. I just sat and listened. So we're very chilled about it. I wouldn't book client meetings in the evening if I knew it was a client who needed full focus. That would really throw them off if something like that happened. So it tends to be people who are of a similar setup, have children, and they need the evenings because their children are in bed. So it's normally, I do it kind of when children are in bed, so 7:30, 8, and it's not too frequent that I would do that, but I offer it because I know that I would need it if I needed a meeting. I'd need it to be when he's down in bed, but it's not for everybody. But yeah, I don't find it too difficult, but I get your point. Yeah, and you've got 3 children.
Yeah, for sure.
How do you say it, Clara?
Well, I don't have children, but I do have a dog who really likes dinner at a specific time.
It's the most gorgeous dog, by the way.
So like 4:30, if I have a meeting that's, end of the day, I have to pre-warn people, I'm so sorry, but at some point she is going to come and throw a strop or try and knock me off my chair because she's a Great Dane and she just can. So I have tried to be pulled off my chair on several occasions in the middle of a meeting, and I've had to explain that to people. But that is also one of the reasons why I will insist on going to somebody's house. If they tell me they have a large dog, sorry, I'm just going to have to come and do your podcast. German Shepherds, I'm there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've got Black Labrador, just so I've got dogs, cats, children, everything.
Amazing. Well, I think we are going to take a quick break there, and we will be back with Christian in just one moment. Hello, I hope you are enjoying the podcast so far. Just a little note from me about some of the brilliant things we've got coming up at NextGen Planners. First of all, we have Good Stock in September, which is our brilliant sustainability conference. If you want to know more information about that and ticket information, you can find that on our website. We have also recently launched business membership, which is very exciting. This is for forward-thinking firms, and it offers a comprehensive suite of tools, training, resources to propel your business forward. And of course, we have our brilliant community, which is filled with amazing content covering all aspects of financial planning. You can find out more about all of these things at our website, www.nextgenplanners.co.uk.
Hello, welcome back to our podcast. We've been chatting to Christian, and we're going to get straight back into it, Christian. I'm going to ask you about clients. So your typical client, give me an idea of, you said about 47 was the average out of age. Why do they come to you? What are they looking for as a typical client? What are they looking for help with?
It's a good question. I think what I set out to do is actually advise people that are fairly similar to me, i.e., middle-aged, got children. So I'm sort of looking around that 50 area. Probably they've got 2 kids that are, maybe late teens, 2 or 3 or however many, and they're starting to think about what the next chapter of their life looks like. I intentionally want to work with people, maybe 5, 10, 15 years from retirement, because that fits in with my time frame, so I can walk them to that. And really we can design that life, life by design. We can help them get where they want to and avoid working too long and all the other pitfalls that come at that age.
So that sort of setup, similar. I find the similar thing, and it's really nice what you just said. I don't know if it's your marketing thing, but it's really good, and I love it, about walking them to the retirement, because you're going to be a similar kind of age. That's great. And in terms of your journey sort of setting up as an advisor, which is fairly recent, last few years, what advice would you give anybody listening who wants to maybe do a similar thing, in terms of things that you spent your energy or your money on that you wouldn't if you did it again? So places you put your resources, your energy, you thought, actually, do you know what, that didn't need to be done.
Well, first and foremost, you've got to start with NextGen, haven't you?
I'll give you the money later.
But no, in all seriousness, I think I use the word naive, and I don't, when we're sort of setting up or have used that in the time, but I was certainly a little bit naive about what it entailed and how did it. So I think going and speaking to other practitioners, and don't don't go to the trap guys that have all been doing it for however many years.
Yeah.
You want to speak to people that have done it 3, 4, 5 years, have got that experience, and go. I think we're quite an open community, and people will generally give you a little bit of time and have that conversation. Find them on LinkedIn, find them through NextGen, go to conferences, do that kind of thing. Basically do your research, have a run rate, understand what your own expenditure is, financial plan a little bit yourself, kind of get that expenditure down. How long am I going to need to, because I definitely didn't. I had some good savings, but I burned through them really quickly on in that respect. And if you're going to go and get help, again, I paid for a coach at the beginning. I'll be honest with you, I think I got ripped off. I paid him well too much money for what he did, but promised me the world, and didn't quite come fruition. That was
so that's maybe an area you might not have spent maybe as much money.
Yeah, I would certainly use coaches, but I think again finding the right one, what the outcome's going to be, someone that's not continuing asking you for more in that sense. But yeah, ultimately you're going to have to take a risk. The earlier you can do it, the better. I did it at 36 with 3 children, a big mortgage, high expenses, which made I had more hair for a few years. So from that perspective, it was quite a big risk, but it's given me. I've learned more in the last 3 or 4 years about myself as a person, i.e., by looking into and helping people with this stuff, it's also made me realise what I want out of my life and what's important to me. My advice is go for it. Just do your research, speak to people, and have a plan about how you're going to get on clients. Because I actually think the advice bit in some ways is quite learnable. The hard bit is getting clients, and people hugely underestimate how difficult it is. I had someone come to me on LinkedIn yesterday and say, I've seen all this stuff you're doing, and I really want to transfer out to it and do all of this. And so you need a plan to get your clients, because he said, the market is, the market's huge. There's an advice gap. There's all these, all these things that get thrown. It's true, but the market's huge, and there's probably less advisors than there are people to advise. But that gap between that being less advisors and the people to advise, it's how do you actually get fit in there, and how do you find those clients? Because once you sort of get to 20, 30 clients, then you start getting referrals, and you start getting all those other things, and the old imposter syndrome starts wearing away a little bit, doesn't it?
And you saw, I don't know if you kind of experienced this, but I've certainly found, I don't know about you, Clara, sometimes you can get a bit carried away and think that if you've done your qualifications and you can write your suitability letters and you know how everything works, clients will just come to you and it'll be fine. It doesn't happen like that. You can be as technically minded as you like, but it's like you said, a completely different skill set to convince somebody that you are the person to help them with what they need help with. So it's selling in a way, but I say it's not selling really, it's just helping them and being able to explain how you can help them. And generally, if you can explain that well enough, they're going to want you to help them because they can see what you can help them with. And that, I've seen so many amazing advisors from a technical standpoint, and then as soon as they go in self-employed, they don't know how to win a client because that's a completely different thing.
It's that asking, isn't it? Yeah, I get where you're coming from. You're just helping them, but that's when you get them into a meeting. It's actually asking people to get to the meeting. That's probably some of the scariest, because that's where the rejection might come, isn't it? Saying to someone, would you want some help with that? How can and having things that you can say to people, because you're sort of going and doing all this networking, but are you actually asking people on the back of it, do you want some help with that? Or, and having those conversations. And I think that's the most difficult bit. If you've got no experience of putting yourself out there and getting that rejection, because the rates at first, you're probably sort of really every 10 you ask, you might get one through the door, and it is difficult at the beginning. That rejection's hard to overcome at times.
You've got to be happy with it, haven't you, the rejection?
And we also come from the sort of post-RDR generation of financial planners, and so people pre-RDR all had sales training, and obviously you will lose out to people who really have the gift of the gab. And I'm not sales trained, and I've been known to blabber a lot. I do it regularly, so I'll do that in an initial client meeting. I'll think, oh my gosh, I've let myself down, but I actually really care about what a client outcome that client gets. And sometimes maybe that excitement and that passion comes through a little bit too much. Yet the slick sales guy will say all those buzzwords, they'll get the client over you. And sometimes that can really hurt your sort of, I guess, your self-worth in some ways. And I heard somebody say quite interestingly, it's because it challenges something that you believe, right? It's something you sort of say, I am not this. I try really hard to not be just a salesperson, just caring about how many assets under management I'm getting and things like that. And so when you lose out to, you find out who the other financial advisor is that they've gone to, and you think, okay, well, I don't stand for any of that. And I feel like, my values are very different. And it sort of says something to you about that rejection, about why you got rejected. And it can hurt more deeply because it's, did you know what I mean by this?
Yeah.
I'm not explaining this very well.
I know. I had recently, so I've had a little bit of time off in the summer, trying to take a bit of time off for the kids. And the client made a referral to me, a friend of his. She's just been made redundant. She'd been working for sort of 25 years, single, late 40s. And she'd already been speaking to an advisor. And her first thing, she was like, she's a German national, so it's like really like straight to she's like, I'm German, I'm straight to the point. It's like, great, we're going to get on. And she said, I've found an advisor. I'm really happy with them, and this advisor will, from really technical, really all about the investment, all about that. I had 2 great meetings with her, and it was all happened this quite quickly. She was, straight. And I thought, definitely that case is coming over. I've really liked her. We got on. I thought I can help her. I know I'm the best advisor for her. And she actually came back to me, a few days later to say, no, I'm sticking with this guy because basically, what he's promised is something different to you. Yeah. And her actual thing was, almost you're too coachy. And I was like, well, actually, that was a good rejection, but it still sort of kicked me in the stomach because it was like, I could help you and I feel I was the right advisor for you, but you've gone with this other person who's charging you more money and not even going to provide you half the things that I do. But some you win, some you lose. So
and it's we were talking in the car on the way up last night about how question styles. So do you remember we were saying about how you were talking about some questions that you could use with a client, and I said, but if I was asked those questions, I would shut down. I wouldn't give you any information. And then we came to realize in our conversation that actually just depends what type of person, what type of client you're talking to as to whether they will engage with you more than me. We're both advisors. I'm sure we both do a good job with the same person, but they'll like one of us more than the other. Basically. So for new advisors, I think it's hard because they come to me or you on LinkedIn and say, well, how do you do it? Well, how I do it is just how I am with a client, but you will attract different types of clients, and they might be similar to mine, but they might not be. You could have a specialism for people that like your way of doing it. So you just got to you got to cut your teeth on it. I think
it's an apprenticeship, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think the thing with this, you can't. It's not something you can just go out and be really successful straight away, because you have to build that experience of different situations, different scenarios, and working with different people to be able to, to build that, build yourself and your authentic self so that you can take it to it. And ultimately, as you grow, you want to avoid people that you don't click with, don't you? When you're starting out, you're like, I just want clients because and I'm sure that comes over sometimes as well.
You take on clients that because you have to, and then down the line you decide that that's not the best fit. But that's a really interesting point that you're making, is essentially on this journey you have to be comfortable with rejection. The only way you're going to make it is by having that initial rejection that helps you learn what type of clients you want, helps us learn how we want to have our business set up and things like that.
Same with risk and reward, isn't it? If you think of it that way, you've got to break some eggs to make an omelette. So the more times you put yourself out there, the more growth you will have, because setbacks actually teach us something. So if you never put yourself out there and you never try, you'll never really learn. And some people do get lucky. There is always somebody in life that you're going to compare yourself against, and they don't show you the bad stuff, they just show you the good stuff. And
I think that's a really important point as well, because on podcasts like this, so often it's all, I did this and this was really successful and this is how I got this. And people are often more reluctant to say, well, this I actually found quite hard. I struggled with for a while. And it's, you guys are working in this profession today, and it's still something that you clearly is something that crosses your mind and something that you struggle with. So I think that hopefully is a nice thing for people to hear, that it's just part and parcel of the role, and hopefully through gaining more clients and feeling confident in your own approach, and that being a successful approach, that's what's important. And I don't want to say the word failure, but whatever that
part of the journey,
yes, is.
And I think I've spent more money on things that don't work than I have on things that work. I've tried buying leads, I've tried marketing things, unbiased, like all these different things, and I've put so much money at the things that don't work. And I think that's important. You've got to try. If you don't try and fail, then you never know, do you? And I think that's the thing. Try different things, try and monitor the data and what comes out of it. Again, which I've always been really bad at.
Do you find that you've got, from your clients that you have acquired over this time? I find I just can't really draw where because they're all just coming from different places. Sometimes I've been successful in this area, and then randomly someone contacts me from this place I didn't think I'd get a client from. And actually drawing a conclusion as to the place to focus on seems to just lead me not to one place, because it's all these different places I acquire clients.
I think definitely. I think as I'm going now, I'm narrowing that down a lot more. But that's me also going, I can't concentrate on 6-7 different avenues at once. I need to sort of focus on 1, 2, 3, so that I can put the proper attention into it. Funny, I got a client the other day, and they'd just gone on, booked a meeting on my website. I was just thinking, sure I know this person from somewhere. I got speaking to her, and she's like, I'm to an old friend of mine. She's like, oh yeah, Katie told me about you. And then I realised I'd got a train with this girl at, for Katie's 30th birthday, and we'd got a train together, and we'd known each other for the last 10 years. But it's, people just sort of come from all different avenues,
And I think you get the luxury of being able to kind of relax a bit once you've got 20-30 clients, like you said, because you've got some income coming in, so you can be more organic with how you get them. But when you're starting from 0 to 30, you've just got to find clients. So therefore you've got to go through all these motions. You've got to be rejected here, there and everywhere. And it's tough. And I think people want a quick answer to it, and we're concluding there isn't one.
And let me ask you a question, and all of you actually be quite interested. Do you have a way that you cope with the rejection?
I cry.
I don't really know.
Sob into a
I
pillow.
tend to I think what's hard is sometimes you're rejected for no fault of your own. They just aren't your cup of tea, and you're not theirs, and that's fine. So I used to take it quite hard in the sense of I'd look at it and be but like you said, but I was a better advisor. I was cheaper. I was this is really frustrating. Now that I'm quite busy, I tend to be probably not the right fit for us. And that's it. I just sort of move on. A bit like Richard, I think it's Richard Branson. He sort of said, if he gets a no, he's like, okay, move on. He's focusing on who's going to work with him rather than who's not going to work with him. But I do look every time, because I think if I've done something that I should have done differently, I want to learn from it. But generally, I find they just probably didn't find me their cup of tea, and that's fine. What about you?
It's a difficult one. I can't claim to say that I don't take it personally still, because I know how much my heart's in it. And when I meet a client, like you said, and you're like, I know I can really help you, and I'm really excited to help them with that journey. And I've sort of mentally invested myself in it. So when somebody says no, it's quite a big disappointment. Everybody goes through that. So I think to be honest, it's just getting busy, keeping busy, and moving on to the next person, and having a great, high at the end of that meeting when, you've really got on with that person, they've agreed to go forward with you. I think it's just finding a distraction, to be honest.
Distraction from it. I did think about this side of it as well. So if you think, we're seeing it from our side, the one being rejected, but think the other way in terms of, how many times in life have you done things where you've rejected somebody, and it's actually more than you think? If you actually think about times you've done that, for me, it might be I've gone to a gym and I've gone in and been I'm on this mission to get fit, and someone sits down with me and they talk through all my goals, and then I never come back again. I've rejected them,
Yeah.
and actually they didn't do anything wrong. I just am too busy. I'm on to something else, and I've forgotten that goal or that objective.
Yeah,
sometimes it's not personal.
And also, it can be quite stressful to try and reject someone as well.
Yes.
And you might meet with a few different advisors, and it's just because, this person was nearer me, this person was this person was that. And you don't, I think making that decision can also be quite tricky as well. So I think it's a really interesting way to think, okay, what position are they in? How can I empathize with them and really understand it's so not to do with me. It's so not my, but you're right. On the one hand, is there something I could have learned better? Did they say actually?
But usually there isn't.
Yeah.
Do you ever ask for feedback?
I don't know whether I don't know if I specifically ask that question, but I guess I do, but I don't ask it like that, if you know what I mean. I'm sort of like, is there anything that you would like us to have done differently? Yeah, I guess I do. But not every time.
Sometimes I do ask sort of loosely, because they say I was speaking to a few different financial planners, and I had some really weird feedback recently, which is I think you're just too holistic. And I was like, okay, I'm not actually going to take that as
that's basically
criticism.
what that woman said to me. Basically,
happy to be too holistic. Actually,
I do. I religiously ask for feedback. Because I just think it's all about improving. Is there anything I did, that I can improve? And I say to them, this is not me. I'd send them an email saying, look, thank you. If there's ever a time you want a second opinion, feel that I'm your friend, come and ask me. Would you mind me asking, and this is not me asking, to try and reopen the conversation, but will you mind me asking some feedback? What could I have done differently? Is there anything that I could have done differently? That kind of thing. Because I generally find it helps me because people aren't cruel. I generally find people are fairly sort of, they'll give you something that's constructive, but they're not like, oh, you're just a horrible person, or I didn't like your glasses or something like that.
Well, then you definitely don't want to work with them anyway.
And just to round that point off, one of the things I probably didn't mention, you say about starting, whoever it might be in your life, whether it's your partner, your wife, your husband, your children, your dog, anyone, make sure that you're talking to them on your journey and they're on board, because I think it should go without saying, Joanne, my partner, her support's really helped me get through a lot of these things, and my dog Roxy, who's a really good listener as well. So.
Active listening all the time.
For sure. And so as we kind of draw this conversation towards a close, let's look at the future then. Okay. So you're still fairly early days into One Day Wealth. What is your ultimate goal, or maybe not just one goal, but where would you like to see the business go? Where would you like to go? Would you like to take more people on board? What kind of client bank would you like? Is there a specific area that you'd like to look at?
Again, I think I said at the beginning, I think it should be a moving target, because at the moment, I would like to get to 70 to 80 client families. I want to be working on my own, outsource everything. I don't want to employ people. I want to work from home. One of the reasons I want to be virtual is actually now my partner also works from home. We're not tied to anywhere. Maybe as the children get older, to actually go somewhere, a little bit out the commuter belt of London, maybe move. And by having a virtual business, I'm not tied to an area, and so what I'm trying to do is give myself a lot of flexibility in the future. Now, might get a little bit down the line, and as I'm being more successful, and decide actually I want to grow this or take this on or do something different. The other thing I would really like to sort of look at, and once I maybe get to that point, is rather than growing that, is there something I can do more within the community? So can I take these things that I'm learning, and go and coach people, and go and do that, and do that as something, do something else. So there's certainly a few options available, but they're the two for me. Have a business, support my family, that symbiotic relationship where I help people will get financially free, so I can be financially free. And then can I maybe go back and into the community of advisors and do that? Because actually, if you want to help more people become financially free, plan properly, if you train people up to do it, then that's the way you can do it without having to employ them. That's the idea.
Helping them like that. Nice.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. That was such an interesting conversation that we've taken loads of different twists and turns.
Very honest.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it too. But yeah, that's all we've got time for this week on That NextGen Planners Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, you can catch all of our other episodes of the podcast on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and on our website as well, which is www.nextgenplanners.co.uk, and there you can find loads more information about our brilliant community. But thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to this episode of the NextGen Planners Podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can find all of our previous episodes on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and on our website. Also, there is where you can find even more information about our brilliant community. And finally, if you can, do leave us a review. It really does help to grow the podcast.